Right up, please, so that I can't miss you. Thank you.
Told a lot this morning, man. You may be punch drunk. Could be an early lunch. Is that a question or is that just a pen? It's like an auction. You have to be careful if you go like that. You may find yourself in trouble. No hands, not even at the back there, which is very strong so far. You're very lucky, you two. Is there anything you wish to add that you forgot to say?
I think if I may just take up one point, which is was made by Councillor Kim and others today, which is about the region, the Asia-Pacific region, and how in many ways, South Korea has a very central and a very focal point in that region. And to establish a presence in Korea, I think, is in every British company's interest. Not only is it a very dynamic consumer society, but it's the world's leading society in investment in broadband, for instance. The education standards by Korean schools and universities are among the world's highest, and there is a tremendous thirst for knowledge and for contact, you might say, amongst the Korean people. But in terms of the region, if you look at an axis which runs from Japan through Korea to China, Shandong province and Jilin province in China, you'll see that already there is a sub-region, and there is a very strong trading activity within that region. So you could say that if you were to be established in South Korea, you could be looking both towards the west, to the China market, Shandong, for instance, Jinan would be a few hours flight from Seoul, and we could also be looking east towards Japan. So I think in terms of the real opportunities for trading and thinking laterally, you can't really be better placed than choosing South Korea.
It's a very valid comment. A hand. Thank you. Yes.
John Cook from the City UK. Chairman, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this is more of an observation than a question.
That's all right, you've got time.
It's a relevant observation. And that is that a number of speakers have spoken of the difficulty there initially was in being sure that this agreement would go through the European Parliament, say the delays that there were, particularly as a result of, I think it was Italy, and the points that it wanted extra time for adaptation. I think that now that this agreement is in place, it's very much seen as a test bed for where the European Union goes next in having agreements, and it really behoves all of us to show the success of this agreement. I belong to a member organisation, and I'm certainly asking my member businesses to let me know of cases in which they are having successes thanks to this agreement, and I think in a way we should all do that with our authorities, if it's to pave the way politically and in every other way for future agreements which will benefit all of us. That's really what I wanted to add. Thank you very much.
No, I think that's a very valid point, and as I think as Councillor Kim said, you know, the answer lies with those people who are wanting to do business. It's fine to have this agreement, to have the words, to have the pages and the many hours and weeks and years of went into it, but it's got to work in practice. And so having the customs people with us today, I think is helpful, and I hope one or two of you that had customs issues may have been able to resolve them or will resolve them. But if things aren't working for you, if you do encounter bureaucratic or whatever problems, legal, not being able to find the right code or whatever, there are plenty of people, to try and help you on both the Korean and the British side, and trade associations and the City UK and embassies and KOTRA. There's lots of people there to help. So please, if you encounter problems, and I'm sure there always are, things are rarely totally straightforward. Please try and find people who can help you, because there are plenty of people there willing to help and to make this work. And this is really creating a whole new pattern in the sort of failure of the Doha round. This is the new thing, and we've all got to make it work. We've got a huge interest, all of us countries, all of us economies, in making it work. Yes, good.
My name is Sun-Chul Lim, the organizer of this event. And privately, personally, I have questions, and I'd like to use Korean. 학원에 대해서 퀘스천을 드리고 싶은데요. 한국이 이 학원에 굉장히 강하단 말이에요. 사설 학원들이 강해가지고 어떤 시험들이 있을 때 그걸 통과시키는 방법이라든지 이런 거에 굉장히 능숙한데, 영국 같은 경우는 예를 들어 영어를 가르친다 그러면 자원이 굉장히 많아가지고 선생님들이 많이 있는 그런 상태인데, 만약에 이제 메인 퀘스천은 뭐냐면은 한국에 있는 그 대형 학원들이 여기 영국에 진출하려고 할 때 주한대사관에 있는 UKTI 어느 부서하고 컨택을 해서 어떤 도움을 받을 수 있는지, 또는 영국에 있는 UKTI에서 어떤 부서에서 어떤 과정을 통해서 도움을 받을 수 있는지, 그렇게 됐어요.
The question from the front was that there are a lot of large number of institutions, including languages and all different educational institutions in Korea, and also they are doing extremely well and train the people who wish to pass all the exams. So we see the Korean. And also we know that in England and the UK, in terms of language-wise, you have large resources available because you're English, the language country here. If any company or institution want to come to the UK to establish a kind of institution in the UK, whereabouts within UKTI, which department they can get some help?
This is an educational institute. Yes. Robert, would you be able to answer that one?
Yes, and I'll try and make it a very succinct answer. First of all, the Korean company could approach the British Embassy in Seoul and ask to be put in touch with an officer responsible for inward investment. He in turn would pass on the information of the interest to one of several agencies here in the UK that support inward investment. In London, that agency has been remodeled into an agency which is called London and Partners. So inward investment for London is the responsibility for London and Partners, and they share that agency with Study London, the former Study London, and also they share it with Visit London, the tourist agency. So that would be the first route. The second possibility, as Warwick has already mentioned, is to discuss that with the British Council, and I'm sure the British Council in Seoul would do their level best to facilitate the Korean education provider, training provider, entry into the UK.
답변을 좀 설명드릴까요? 들으신 대로 두 가지 방법이 있는데, 하나는 현재 리모델 다시 구조 조정 중인 런던 앤 파트너라는 조직하고요. 거기에 또 스터디 런던, 비짓 런던 이런 조직을 건착하시면 정보를 얻을 수 있고, 또 하나 방법은 한국에 있는 그 주한 영국 영사를 통해서, 영사관을 통해서 그런 그 에듀케이셔널 인스티튜션을 도울 수 있는 사람들을 찾으시면 되겠습니다.
Is that all right, that answer?
Yes. Okay.
We can talk some more. In the other direction, you may be interested to know, those of you that don't, that Dulwich College now has a school operating in Korea quite recently, and North London Collegiate is also working on a project, I think, in Jeju. And this again is a sector which a few years ago was perceived as rather difficult, but is becoming less difficult. And I'm sure, if there are Korean educational institutions of one kind or another are interested in doing something in this country, they will find it less difficult now than perhaps they might have done some years before. Any final, yes, question there, flat left. All right.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Boyle-Sarr, and I run a creative education company called Artist, so whilst we're on education, I first of all wanted to say how wonderful UKTI has been for our company. We have been working with the UKTI team in Seoul doing the passport to export scheme, so we've done a market research trip, and I could highly recommend linking up with UKTI. One thing I haven't quite got my head around is with this FTA agreement is how it might benefit an education service company. I have a much better idea if I was producing an actual product as to how it would be of benefit, but perhaps you could let me know as an education service provider how will the FTA benefit our company?
Yes. Councillor, would you have anything to say on that point? How the FTA might benefit a company in the education sector?
Okay. Yeah, right. Actually, the education services is one of the areas of quite sensitive services area in Korea, like the education and medical services. So it is not totally open, but the part of the education system, education market is open. It's for the there should be more definition, but it's a higher level of the education for the adults, and so. But the like high schools or middle school is not yet open, but it is open. It is allowed only for the special areas like Jeju Island or something. In that case, under the special law, this is allowed, but generally it is not open yet.
Right. Not a very favourable answer, but thank you, Councillor, not your fault. I mean, I would keep in touch with the British Council as well as the Embassy, who do follow these things very closely. And as I say, there does seem to be more traffic, education traffic going to Korea now. Not sure yet, there are obviously areas where it's not yet entirely open, but one hopes that will change. But keep in touch with UKTI, the Embassy, the British Council, and others who may be already in the sector in the UK. Get some tips from them, perhaps.
I'm just going to say, evidently, education and training is a sector where we both learn from each other, and we respect that in South Korea there is a wish to maintain the very high standards both in high school education and in universities that they've already achieved, and as I said earlier, these are standards which are world-leading. I think the way I see it, and this is my personal view, is that there's going to be more opportunity for strategic partnerships through between centres of learning, and the development of hopefully some joint degree accreditation process. But that is my sort of long-term view, it's a personal view. I also think that there is evidently now a tremendous opportunity around the whole area of professional training in financial services, for example, professional training in tourism, and where the two communities can identify where they can learn from each other. And I do stress that word. It is learning from each other. We can't in any way claim here in the UK to take the high ground when it comes to training.
I think that's a very good point on which to finish, unless there's a last question. Right, well, I'm not sure if I'm to make the closing remarks, am I? All right, well, in closing, let me thank all of you for coming, because without you here we wouldn't have an event. But obviously special thanks to KOTRA, to the Korean Embassy in London, to the London Chamber of Commerce, to UKTI, to our customs friends from both Korea and the UK, and to the Korean Embassy in Brussels. Great participation by everybody. I've learned a lot of stuff. A lot has happened in the last 3 years. And let us make sure that this really groundbreaking FTA actually works. So good luck, and thank you very much for coming today.